Greetings, Taco Faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you all my review of the Legends of Tomorrow Season 1 finale right here on Otaku Assemble. Weekly, and as always, here to bring you the latest in this week's Legends of Tomorrow episode review. And this is my review of Season 1, Episode 16, entitled Legendary. Now, general thoughts on the Season 1 finale. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and try to make this review as concise and coherent as I possibly can. But I'm going to be honest with you all, I'm struggling with it. And the reason for that is because this episode, especially since it's the season finale, not only was it underwhelming, but I found it to be overly complicated, scramble-brained, and lacking of so much focus that we actually needed in order to close out this season. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and get into more detail with that, and I'm going to try my very best not to break out into a full-blown rant. But okay, couple of things I just want to go ahead and address about this episode. Number one, let's talk about Savage's plan. Okay, so we found out in this week's episode, picking up where we left off from last week's episode, now that Savage has more or less pretty much acted out the events that we were trying to prevent all season long, which was the murdering of Rip's family, right? Savage goes ahead, he murders them, so we're back to, where we're supposed to be in 2166. But what has changed is the fact that because of Rip and the rest of the team destroying the Oculus, now not only can the Time Masters not monitor time anymore, they can't manipulate time to their ends, and by doing so they can no longer benefit Savage, right? So, after finding out this information, Savage decides that, wait for it guys. Now I'm assuming if you're watching this review, you've already seen the episode, but let's just go ahead and reiterate, alright? So I just reminded you all where we left off with Savage last episode, right? Okay, so in this week's episode, this is what Savage decides to do. Savage, okay, he has Kendra and Carter, and then we find out why, because he needs their blood so that he can perform the ritual that allows him to sustain his immortality. Correct? Because remember, he needs to go ahead and he needs to kill them in order to remain immortal. And of course, this ritual is part of that. Alright, but wait for it. Now get this. So, Savage comes up with the idea. Somewhere along the line, he found out, because we never get any background information on how he discovered this. But somewhere along the line, he discovered that the three meteorites, or the three meteors, if you will, the three meteors that landed in the Middle Kingdom back in ancient Egypt that gave Carter, Kendra, and Savage their abilities, right? He found out that there was Thanagarian technology in those meteors. And so, his new plan is to gather those meteors and to perform the ritual on said meteors, because apparently doing so would blow up the Earth. And he decides to do this in 3 key years throughout time when Earth and Thanagar are planetarily aligned. And the idea is supposed to be that if he destroys the Earth in 3 different time periods simultaneously, it causes a rupture in the time stream, in the timeline, that completely sets everything back to the Middle Kingdom and erases history as we know it, the entire future that occurs after ancient Egypt. And the plan is wipe out the rest of history, go back to ancient Egypt, and I'm going to go ahead and become Pharaoh, and then I will maintain my rule on Earth from that point forward. That was his plan. That doesn't make a lick of sense. Nothing in there made a lick of sense. And even the explanation they gave in the episode made no sense. I don't understand how destroying the Earth at 3 different points in time would create that rupture to begin with. I don't understand how Savage found out that there was Thanagarian technology in the meteors to begin with. I don't know how he knew how that he could even use the meteors in that way. None of that made sense. None of it. The only thing about that plan that made sense was Savage's motive, his end game, that he wanted to pretty much go back to ancient Egypt and erase the rest of time and then just pretty much start again from ancient Egypt. But this time he would be, sort of like he would take over the world then. And the rest of time would be rewritten under his rule. Like, that motive, I think, is good, but everything else about his plan made zero sense whatsoever. Even with the explanations we were given, it made zero sense. And there are a couple of reasons for that. The biggest reason for that, and it is the biggest problem that not only this show has had, but I think that the Arrowverse has had by and large. Well, of course, there's the whole issue with underdeveloped and miswritten female characters. Okay, that's the biggest issue. This is the second largest issue that the Arrowverse has had, and it's that they have never decided on stone rules for time travel. They never decided specifically, these are the laws of time travel. Under no circumstance can these laws be broken. They've never decided on that. What has happened both in Flash and especially in Legends of Tomorrow is that the writers seem, and here's the other thing too, and this I think is just terrible writing, period. The fact that we only learn of new rules for time travel the very instance in which those rules in which these new rules can be applied. Like, it's sort of like Legends of Tomorrow implements cheat codes, right? Like, we only learn about these hacks for time travel when the team needs to use these hacks. And when you do that, that means you are pretty much manipulating the concept of time travel to serve your own ends whenever you feel like it. Why? Because the plot dictates it, right? Here's the problem with that, though. What happens when you try to enforce the laws of time travel that you have broken on several occasions, right? Because we get that in this episode. When Sara wants to go back in time to prevent Laurel's death, right? And Rip says, oh, you can't do that. But Rip, that was the main objective of this entire show. You tried to go back in time to prevent Savage from assuming power so that your family would live. Why was it okay for us to do this for what, 12 episodes? But now that Sara wants to do it to save Laurel, now it can't be done. What? What? And how many times has Barry on The Flash gone back in time and changed the events of history so that things did not play out? Remember, our introduction into Vandal Savage, right? In the fall crossover episodes of The Flash and Arrow, the whole team got wiped out. Barry went back in time to prevent that from happening. Like, bear with me, y'all, because oh my goodness, this is so bad. Like, okay, so yeah, like, this has been a reoccurring and a hindering problem within not just this show, but the entire Arrowverse, that they never set in stone, concrete, hard, you must adhere to the tenets of time travel. This is how it works in our universe. They never decided on that. And because of it, they come up with all of this stuff that completely contradicts other things that they've done, and it just doesn't work anymore. Like you can't even get away with it. I don't understand and I don't get it, and I'm trying to sit here and wrap my brain around it. But guys, believe me when I tell you, if you've been watching the series along with me, and if you've been watching my reviews all this time, you guys know, yeah, this doesn't work. And I think they just dropped the ball big time in this episode. All they had to do, because if you go back and you look at, remember what I said in my previous reviews, how I talked about episodes 12, 13, well, 13, 14, 15, and 16, it seemed as if they were playing out more like a 4-part finale. And I even mentioned that we didn't even need episode 14. Like, we actually could have went from 13 straight to 15, right? And everything that was in those 2 episodes set up for what I thought our finale would be. Given what we got in last week's episode, all we really needed in this episode was final showdown with Savage and then set up for season 2. That's all we needed. That's all we needed. We did not need Savage getting this new brain scheme villain plot, right? We didn't need that. I don't think we needed to have the team sort of separate at the beginning of the episode only to come right back together. Like, that seemed like a waste of time. And it really did feel like filler. It felt like filler. It felt like they did that because, remember, the team separates at the very beginning of the episode. They go back to 2016. But it's 5 months later, so they go back to May of 2016, which is present time. And here's the other thing too. And this is really what doesn't make any fucking sense. If they went back to present day, if they went back to now in May of 2016, so not only did Sara go back to Star City and find out that her sister was dead, but never mind. Remember, she found Quentin right where we left him in the bunker in last night's episode of Arrow. There's a nuclear holocaust on the brink of happening, and Sara leaves. Ray goes to Central City and it's being overrun by metahumans, and he decides to leave. Like, I don't see how you could drop them off with what's going on in the Arrowverse right now and they decide, well, we didn't stop Savage, but we're just going to ignore what's going on right here, because clearly Barry and Oliver have things under control, right? No, they fucking don't. So the idea that these heroes don't get in, like I thought when they dropped them off in present day, that means that we were going to get some of these characters returning for the finales for Flash and Arrow, and that's not what happened. No, they show up in 2016, they spend a couple of time there, and then they jump right back onto the Wave Rider, and we're right back going after Savage. Filler. That's the only reason it was in this episode. Filler. And then, oh my goodness. The only positive thing that came out of this episode was the setup for season 2. Because, what's my boy's name? Rex Tyler, who is our man in the comics. He was introduced to us, and he prevented Rip and the rest of the team from going back on the Wave Rider and whatnot. And of course, he dropped the ball. He dropped the name drop that, oh, I'm a member of the Justice League. I'm sorry, because we can't. Apparently, I don't think we can use Justice League in the television show since the movie's in production. No, I'm a member of the Justice Society of America. So at some point in time, the Justice Society does form. So, but yeah. Other than that, that was the only positive thing that came out of this episode. Everything else was terrible. Kendra captured the majority of the episode, not being as involved in the story as she could have been. Carter being thrown in at the last minute for some bullshit exposition. Didn't work out at all. Oh my goodness. Oh, this finale was so bad. Oh, it was so bad. Oh, it was so bad. Yeah. This finale was pretty bad. It was pretty downright terrible. And it is a major disappointment, especially for me, because I've already gone on record stating that I think Legends was I think it was the best of the Arrowverse series for this year, for the fall 2015, spring 2016 year, for year 4 of the Arrowverse. I think this was the best show in the Arrowverse. And yeah, they totally dropped the ball for this finale. They did. Yeah, they really did. They really did. That's going to wrap up my Legends of Tomorrow episode review. I want to thank you all for joining me again this week. In the comments below, Leave your thoughts on anything I brought up in this video. Leave your thoughts on the episode. Leave your thoughts on any of the issues I brought up. Leave your thought. You know what? I will say this though. I am more interested in hearing what my subscribers and what my viewers think about what we could be getting for season 2, because you know the Arrowverse has changed dramatically just within the last week. Supergirl is coming to the CW. They aired the first commercial for it during Legends of Tomorrow. Supergirl's coming to the CW, so it's going to be part of the Arrowverse, because I think it was earlier today they announced that they're going to be doing a 4-way fall crossover between Supergirl, The Flash, Arrow, and Legends of Tomorrow. A huge, like the biggest crossover they've ever done. That's already been announced. And I'm assuming, I do believe that Legends of Tomorrow is getting a full season order for season 2. So I think it's going to be 23 episodes. I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me on that. I might be wrong. But I think they did announce that it was going to get a full 23 episode season 2. So I'm much more interested in hearing you all's thoughts on that rather than beating up on this poor, terrible, plot convenience driven episode. Anyway, so if you like this video, please feel free, thumb it up, share it with other fans of the show, people you might think would get a kick out of this review. And if you have yet to do so, subscribe to the OAW YouTube channel. Annotation is above head. And with that being said, it's been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief. I'm signing off. And until next time, peace.